Hello and welcome everyone to Awakening Spiritual Intelligence. Today's theme is inner wholeness, and I will hand it over to Yosi.
Thank you, Pauline. Hello, and welcome. All of you is welcome, and or all of you are welcome. So when I first type in my script, all of you is welcome, I got the correction. No, so but I'm talking about all of you as an individual, all parts, and then all of you, all of us. So, but first we need to start with the first part that is all of you, meaning all parts are welcome. And so let's take a moment, tune in and welcoming all of ourselves, our strong parts, our powerful parts, our kind and generous parts, as well as our difficult, problematic, weak, scared parts. The parts that are here present and listening to these words, and then we can welcome the parts that are someplace else, thinking, ruminating, planning the future, parts that haven't fully landed here. So let's see what happens when we welcome and include them. What's it like to simply and wholeheartedly welcome all of you? So let's just take a moment and notice. And if you're care to, you could type into the chat a few words of what it's like. And now that you've welcomed all of you, all of yourself, perhaps you can welcome also the rest of us. So all of you, all of me, and all of us are welcome. And the more of ourselves we are welcoming, the more wholeheartedly we can welcome others here and everywhere. Becoming whole and integrated and in internal coherence as an individual helps us to be able to welcome and bring the group, the community, into wholeness and into greater coherence as well. So the more welcoming of our anxiety or scared parts or our anger, the more welcoming and tolerant we could be of other people that exhibit those qualities, emotions. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand. And when we welcome everything and we feel whole and integrate, then we're aligned and empowered. Conversely, when we're divided, fragmented, weakened, we're fighting certain parts of us, and that there's internal fragmentation. And this is not to say that to minimize the value of opposing forces, which when synthesized can move us into a higher level of integration and wholeness, which results in greater confidence and ease in being all of who and what we are and capable of becoming. So we'll play with that. So some of this abstract ideas could be embodied and experienced. But for example, several gatherings ago, we worked with synthesis. And synthesis, we worked with the example of two qualities of being assertive and receptive. At first blush, we might feel like they're in conflict. If I'm assertive and I'm busy advocating for my views and my needs, I'm not so open and receptive to others. And conversely, if I'm so open and receptive, I may not be forcefully advocating for my needs and views. But in reality, in a relationship, we need both for optimal functioning. So let's play with some of that experientially. So let's take a moment and feel into our assertive part, the one that is strong and knows what they stand for and that is willing to advocate for it. Perhaps you can recall something you feel strongly about in your personal or your collective our collective lives right now. There's a lot going on in the world that we may feel strongly about, and we want to advocate for that, whatever that is. So feel into your energy, into your body, and feel into the body posture and attitude, the combination of which someone I heard called postitude. It's posture and attitude combined. And so when you are in this assertive, advocating, strong stance, is your body leaning forward or back? Does your spine feel tall or short or collapsed? Well, how about your legs? How do they feel? How about your arms and hands? Do you feel grounded, rooted, or do you feel soft? And how's your chest feeling? How's your muscle tension, your jaw, your breathing? So again, just take a moment and sense into this assertive part, this assertive energy. And what would be an image of this? What do you feel like in this state? Perhaps like a rock or a line or a tall redwood tree or the bright radiating sun. It could be whatever. It could be an image of yourself or someone you have seen that is assertive. So as you bring this image to mind, let's each take a selfie, so to speak, a mental snapshot of this state of being and associated image. And we can kind of put it in our album. So we place this image and this state of being in one of your hands. Kind of imagine that you're taking the selfie image and you're placing it in one of your hands, perhaps your dominant hand. As you hold this image in your hand, and in your mind and in your body, notice your state of being, the state of being assertive. Now you can let it go and shake it up, shake up the hand, and you can move your body and wiggle a little bit. And let's call up the part of us, the part of you that is receptive, that is open, that is welcoming to others and point of view, and sense into its energy. Notice the postitude of being receptive. Are you leaning more forward or hanging back? How open does your chest feel? How's your muscle tension and level of relaxation now in this state of being receptive? Your breathing. And what would be an image associated with this state of being receptive? Perhaps like a round, soft moon or a welcoming smile or open arms ready to embrace someone. Whatever the image associated with being receptive is. And again, let's take a selfie image of this state and put that in the other hand, perhaps the non-dominant hand. And notice your state of being here. Now you can let go of this image and shake this hand and pick back up the image that you held in the state of being assertive. And notice if and what shifts in your state of being by simply recalling this image of and this quality of being assertive associated with the first hand. So take a few full breaths in this state and see if you can re-inhabit, reoccupy, re-embody this state of being assertive. And after feeling like you have a sense of it, let's shake it up and let it go. And let's pick back up this image selfie for being receptive, which is we had placed in the second hand. So see what it's like if you can recall this image of being receptive, whatever that was for you. Now that you've landed back in being receptive, see if you can also bring back up now without letting go of the receptive state, just the assertive state hand. And then step back, like imagine looking and holding and sensing both hands from about 3 to 5 feet behind your back. So you're sensing, seeing, feeling into both hands, one of which is holding the receptive image and one of which is holding the assertive. And for a while, you might be wobbly, kind of moving back and forth. Let's see what happens if you keep opening the aperture of the awareness to the point where you feel you have kind of synthesized and merged both, holding both at the same time. And see what it's like if it gives you some sense of being assertive, connected to your ground, your confidence, your beliefs, what you need. So you're interconnected, but you're also open and receptive. So from this state, we could be interconnected and interconnected. We're rooted in ourselves. We could be assertive, but we're also open to others, their views that might be different. So does anybody care to share either live or on the chat what you've experienced, what you've noticed, either when you inhabited the assertive stance or what you experienced when you inhabited the receptive stance and what the difference was, and if you were able to get a glimpse of being aware and holding both sides. Okay, Declan, go
I'll,
ahead.
sh- I'll share. So I had a very clear vision or visual of like the masculine. I used to live in New Zealand, and the All Blacks, the rugby players. That's a very powerful. They're doing their haka, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And so for me, it was very much an association with the masculine and feminine. That was the two sort of assertive, receptive, and so in my body, it was much more straight, grounded, feeling the feet on the ground and slightly leaning forward, but there was a confidence. And, I was trying to reflect on the breath and see, there was an ease and a solidness in that. There was maybe it's more comfortable for me, or maybe
Uh-huh.
it's more of an aspirational state that I endeavor to live from, as in being grounded and present and
Uh-huh.
clear. The the flip side was a little more challenging for me, and I was like trying to dig around for a visual, and I hope it's okay to say, but I could only think of when I'm making love with my wife, and she's very receptive, and so it's like, wow, I don't know if I can be that receptive. It's like letting that all in, and it felt very kind of um
Uh-huh.
vulnerable, and there was
Yeah.
more
Well,
uncomfortable for me to to let that in, and I realized, wow, I probably don't let enough of that in the sense of being vulnerable and open.
yeah.
And then to come together was it was a natural thing then for that to come together, but it was yeah, there was a nice dance in that together of feeling, well, actually, it's the aspects of each of us, that masculine, feminine, that
That we want to bring it into integration. Yeah, you could look
integration.
at it through that masculine feminine language, and we associate the assertive with the masculine. And but as we're trying to highlight here, is both men and women, masculine, feminine, can
Yeah.
include assertive, receptive. So yeah, are there things in life that is easy for you to be receptive? Maybe when you're around children that is less threatening, or do you feel receptive to spirit, or you
There
know?
is, yeah, you're right. It is, in certain environments, I'm much more receptive. Um, by virtue of what I'm doing, I feel I've got to be assertive in what whether I might be facilitating a workshop or doing a keynote. It seems like I'm having to stand in a certain way or be more confident in that or more confident in working with clients. There's not a lot of opportunity, I don't have young children around anymore, but occasionally there is much more around. There's a feeling of, and around those that I'm most intimate and close to, I can be um,
Yeah,
gentle.
so it sounds like it has something to do with safety also. To be
Yeah,
receptive, we have to feel safe and to be open like that. Great.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you.
So yeah. So let me share here one of and there are many polarities we could play with. We talked here about assertive, receptive, but one of my spiritual intelligence interview subjects spoke about it in this way, which is uh, in this state of inner wholeness, recognizing that harmonious interplay of opposites, like self-esteem and humility, and being comfortable expressing all of these energies gives me the courage to be all of me and actualize my potential. So that's another potential polarity that we tend to hold as opposites. Like if I'm confident and have a high self-esteem, then I can't be humble. Well, we normally think that both are attractive. We want to be confident and we like to be humble. So if we go confident to the extreme without some measure of humility, we risk becoming arrogant or closed to others. And the humility is related to our openness and receptivity, in fact. So, but so far, most of us look at both assertive, receptive in a positive light. We confident and humble are both positive, and uh, that's positive. Now, there are parts of us that we might view more problematic, more difficult, and for each of us, something that we consider problematic, difficult might be different. It could be our anxious, scared, or angry parts. The problem is that when we try suppress, repress, deny, or eliminate those parts, they don't just vanish. They tend to go underground and hiding out of our conscious awareness. And every once in a while, they pop up and act out, seemingly out on their own. So rather than bringing conscious presence, for example, to our anger, we keep it down, efforting to block it out of conscious awareness or any expression. And every once in a while, it might explode. So blocking and denying parts of us does violence to those parts. In the name of nonviolence, we engage in self-violence. On the other hand, if we bring conscious awareness, just staying with the anger example, to anger, holding it in the larger field of our consciousness, the part of us that is always whole and present is like a mirror that is not damaged by whatever it's reflecting. And then we can disidentify from the anger and experience our equanimity and wholeness while embracing and seeing the anger. So one of my interview subjects said, over time, I developed more self-acceptance and confidence, and I am able to own that difficult part that I used to try to deny. There's now more willingness and ease with more and more of myself. With this developing radical self-acceptance comes confidence to be all of who I am. I think that's a way of saying what I was expressing. Rilke said, if my devils are to leave me, I'm afraid my angels will take flight as well. That's a more poetic way of saying this. And Jung said, the tree that will grow to heaven must send its roots to hell. It's a bit of a radical statement that might shock some of us, but who am I to argue with Jung? And another person, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, said, if you betray the earth in you, you will never attain the heaven in yourself. So that's another way of, I think, saying what Jung said in a slightly less, I don't know what to say, radical way. So this radical self-acceptance, this radical self-embrace is easier said than done. So before we try and apply this perspective to the more challenging context, let's try a more moderately challenging polarity, and that is being fierce and strong versus being tender and soft. So for some, these might all be positive qualities, while some of us might have negative association, for example, with the notion of being fierce. I imagine many women have been conditioned to believe that being fierce is not appropriate for them or not feminine. Still, a woman needs to be fierce when protecting her loved ones or children. A mama bear is super fierce and perhaps angry when her cubs are threatened. Her fierceness is actually an expression of compassionate love for that which she loves. So take a moment, check in for yourself. Do you see being fierce as a valuable capacity in your spiritual framework? Certainly, many have spoken about the value of being fierce and discerning the truth and cutting out the falsehood. So let's take a moment and call up our fierce quality in part. Again, notice your postured, body posture, attitude, energy, tension level, openness in the chest, breathing. And what image is associated with this state? Perhaps it's related to the being assertive. Perhaps it's more extreme or even stronger. I think certainly fierce is kind of cranking up the assertiveness. There's a sense of urgency and force that goes with it. You know, a mother that is pulling her child from running into the highway or the street when cars are driving back is going to be fierce. And she's going to be quick. There's not going to be time to mess around. But that fierceness is coming out of care and love. There's a sharpness, there's a precision, there's an urgency to it. But see what comes up for you with this image associated with fierceness. You know, in the Hindu framing, there's Kali. She's a goddess, and there are other deities that have a sword that cut through the falsehood. But see what comes up for you, this image associated with being fierce. And notice the state of being in your body and your energy, your postured. your body's state, alert level, nervous system activation. And again, take a selfie and put it in one of your hands, again, perhaps your dominant hand, and just be with that. And now let it go and call up your tender, compassionate, and soft parts. You know, the part of you that when you see suffering or of someone you love and care about, someone who's vulnerable, and you notice their difficulty, their suffering, and there's a natural tenderness and an openness in the heart that wants to alleviate their suffering. That might feel tender. And again, notice your postured now, your posture, your attitude, your energy, your tension level, how open your chest feels, your breathing. What image is associated with this state? It could be holding a hummingbird or a butterfly in your hand. You can be very tender holding. Whatever it is that is associated for you with this being tender, open, soft, compassionate. And again, take a selfie and put it in your other, the non-dominant hand. So you can let it go and go back to the fierce side, recalling that state of being, recalling that image and holding it in that first dominant hand. So notice how your body knows how to shift. There's a whole somatic embodied experience that is very different when we're in a fierce state of being and when we're in a tender state of being. So being aware of those somatic markers helps us know where we are and what we're experiencing, and can help us in self-regulating. So as you experience this fierce side and kind of stabilize in it, at least somewhat, you can let it go. Shake up that hand and pick up again the image and the selfie from the tender and soft side. And notice the shift. And now step back and see if you can hold both hands in both states of being in your awareness. Being fierce and being tender. And it might feel wobbly at first, moving back and forth between them. But after a while, you might stabilize and synthesize them, or it might feel like a dance, a fluidity of fierceness and softness. It might be like a dance with two people dancing. One comes forward, kind of, and then the other one is soft, receptive, tender, and then you switch. So you might be in a dance with someone physically, uh, alternating between these two energies, and then be kind of like that dance within ourselves, which might feel good, perhaps. And if you can't do this, notice if some part that is self-critical or self-doubting is coming up now. So that's another part that we can work with. Might not have the time to fully go into it, but as a reminder, some rock star poet said, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's Leonard Cohen. I'm bringing this in because, inner wholeness involves owning our cracked and fragmented parts, our shamed parts, whatever it is. But our wholeness can hold the cracks. And then when we do that, then we are more identified and integrated. So this it takes a little more subtle work, and I wish we could dive on how to work with these cracks and let them reveal their light and let their own divine sparks come through, be liberated. The divine sparks that are trapped in those shadowy places can be liberated. Again, that takes a little more subtle work, more courage. So, to quote Rilke again, perhaps everything terrible is in its deepest essence something helpless that needs our love. And we all have places that are wounded, hurt, feel cracked, feel helpless, feel weak. And the sooner we can bring him into our awareness and welcome him, they start to heal. And we start to feel more integrated, more whole. Now, one way to uncover these broken, cracked, and perhaps helpless parts is to start with this statement and affirmation. I wholeheartedly embrace and accept all of me with all my problems and limitations. So you could say that to yourself. I'm going to type it into the chat. I'm not sure we made a slide of this, so I just want you to have it so you can practice saying it to yourself. Oh, well, thank you, Pauline. You are ahead of me. So see what happens to you as you say to yourself silently. You could tune in if you want, close your eyes. I wholeheartedly embrace and accept all of me with all my problems and limitations. And perhaps it's rings true, and see what happens when that rings true. Maybe you feel some inner peace. Maybe you mostly resonate with the statement, but then there's some part that's like, yeah, kind of, but I'm not sure about that part. I'm not sure about the part of me that feels ashamed for what I did in third grade or what happened to me when I was, 12 years old, or for this part of my body, or We all have something in us that we feel is not okay. I shouldn't say all. I think many of us, most of us. So I wholeheartedly embrace and accept all of me with all my problems and limitations. Can I really accept my shame? What about my victim mindset or my rage? So if we have time after the exercise we're going to do shortly in dyads, and someone is brave enough, I'm happy to try working with this in the group, but this takes a little more time. And tending to the broken part, that and bringing compassion to it rather than rejection and judgment, which only it makes the wounds more severe. So anyway, I hope I'm making sense. If anybody want to ask a quick question about what I've said so far, and then we'll move to the demo. I'm just aware of time. I want to get you guys to do some of this experientially. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a question around fierceness because I felt very uncomfortable with it there because I had associated it with rage and anger and not being safe in that. I can appreciate it in a bear or a mother, but there's seldom opportunities like that in my life right now to that fierceness. And so it was more from an old place of reflecting, it was wrong to be fiercely angry. It was conditioned out of me at a young age. And so it almost felt like debilitating to try and imagine what that would be like in my life until I kind of reframed it more as courageous or fiercely independent or fiercely. But the actual energy or emotion of fierce feels a mixture of fear and anger of the loss of something, protecting a child. Of course, I can rally it up then, but it's not an emotion that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah,
And
well, it makes
certainly not
sense
something I
that
can
for
embrace.
all the reasons you said, it's associated with violence. And again, fierce is different than anger. You could be fierce and not have no anger, just clarity. I mean,
Mm,
there's just a precision and definitiveness, like a sharp knife. And
mm,
a surgeon might need to be quote unquote fierce in taking out a tumor.
mm, mm,
And it just kind of like, if you're like, oh, I don't know, this and that, I don't want to cut the person, and it's going to be bloody, whatever. But you're taking out the tumor. That's this kind
Okay,
of,
that's a good reflection. It's almost like direct honesty or willingness to be courageous in the face of fear, perhaps. Or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you think of fierce, like often it becomes loaded and associated with anger and rage and violence. Um,
Hmm. But I've
and
seen it in use when I'm in the middle of mediating a conflict, for instance, between two people. It
uh-huh.
maybe that's the energy of willing to put myself in there and to support them, even though it's quite a volatile situation. I guess
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and sometimes you have to be fierce in saying stop.
yeah.
No, like you're mediating two people and it's escalating or whatever, and you can't be too namby-pamby in getting them to stop. So you just kind of fierce say, hey, stop. And it's kind of like that. And it's actually protecting against the violence and the harm that they're doing to each other. If like I see that sometimes when I work with couples, and
Yeah.
couples will degenerate and say all kind of nasty things. And if I just let it go, it's just going to cause more and more damage that they'll regret. So I have to be fierce and say, hey, stop. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And that gets their attention, they stop. So it could be actually a protective energy as opposed to a violent energy,
Yeah.
but there's a fierceness to it that kind of cuts through the noise.
Yeah. That's very helpful.
Okay, good. So let's move to the exercise, and then Pauline and I will demo it. And then you guys will get to play around with some of this. So you're gonna, I'm purposely knowing that some people or many people are likely to have difficulty with fierce and tender and balancing and integrating those. I did kind of a quick run of that here with you, but you're going to get to do that in dyads, and you'll have a little more time, and you'll see each other doing it, and that might be helpful. So there'll be one part where, first you'll be put into dyads, and then you'll take 1 minute to say hello and introduce yourselves, each 1 minute. Then one of you will go first, and you'll go through 4 steps. The first step is to, again, feel into this quality of fierceness and notice the posture, attitude of that. And then take an image with that and create a selfie, put it in one hand. So that will be 1 minute. And I'll be calling out the timering, so you don't have to keep track of time. My voice will come through the thing in the breakout rooms. And then you'll let go of fierceness, shake it up, and feel into the part of you that feels tender and soft. And again, notice the postured, the attitude, the body posture of being tender, and take a selfie of that, and you put it in the other hand. And so that will be a minute where you get to experience being tender. And then you let go of the tender and repick the first hand, the selfie from being fierce, and re-inhabiting the fierce quality. And then you let go of that and repick the tender soft from the second hand, and you go back and forth just briefly for 1 minute. If we had more time, the more time you have to kind of stabilize in each before you go back, and you get more and more familiar, and your body starts to have embodied memory, that can be helpful. So if you like this, you could play with it on your own at home, and until you kind of get comfortable with these energies and they become familiar in your body, and then it's easier to recall them when you need to. So after you do a little bit back and forth, you'll do this technique of stepping back, opening the aperture of the awareness, and feeling and both hands and feeling both energies, and seeing whether you can find the dance, the integration of being fierce and tender. So that's the first part that you're going to do. So each person will basically go through these 4 stages, 1 minute each, and then you'll switch. Then the other person will do that. And the other person is just witnessing first, and then you become the participant. So this is part 1. Now we'll move to part 2. And part 2 might seem a little similar to what we did in our last meeting around, integrity and tuning into the body, but it's a little different. But so. But similar to that, you're going to describe a dilemma you're facing, and there are two options you're considering. So maybe you're looking at a new job, and one job, and you have two opportunities to pursue. One of them, you're very aligned with the purpose, the mission of the organization, etc. And so the value that draws you to that opportunity is purpose. This job really aligns with my purpose. And the other job, but it may be far away, or the pay may not be so good, or whatever it might be. But the other job may be closer to home and enables you to spend more time with your family. And so the value associated with the second job, even though it's not as aligned in terms of its purpose and mission of what the organization does, it supports your community, your family, your presence at home. And so one of them is family value, one of them is purpose, or whatever it might be. So after you've described this dilemma to your partner who's witnessing you, and you've identified what's the value in option A, you sit on one side. If you're on a couch or on a chair, you can move it slightly to one side and name the value that it represents, and just try to embody this value. If it's purpose, see what it's like to just be purposeful, and what's it like, how does it affect you to be really behind the purpose that you're aligned with. And so again, you'll take a selfie and put it in one hand associated with this value or quality of purpose in this example, and then you let it go, and you move your chair slightly or your position to the other side of the couch, and you state the second option and the value associated with it, the quality. In this example was family time. And again, what it's like, notice what it's like to name and embody the second value, and you take a selfie and put it in the second hand. And then you do this thing we've done here, but you'll have a little more time. You'll spend 2 minutes going back and forth between, you let B go, the value associated with B. You sit in the middle, and you don't need to move your body from one side to another anymore. You just sit in the middle, and then after you let go of B, and then you pick up A, the value associated with A, purpose. You feel into what's it like to be aligned in purpose. Then you stabilize in that for a few seconds. You let it go, and then you repick B, and you let B permeate your body and that stance. You get familiar with it, and then you let B go, and you repick A, and then you go back and forth between those two states of being, these two that are capturing these two values. Now, of course, in some decisions, there are many, many values, but we're just, and it gets more complicated, but this just gives you a taste or of the tool that you could use. And then so after you've gone back and forth between A and B, you step back as if you're watching both hands from about 5 feet behind your back and holding both in your awareness. And what's it like when you include both of values associated with A and B? Both are important, being purposeful and having quality family time. Now, maybe once you've kind of integrated it, maybe then your mind says, okay, well, maybe there is a job out there that can get me both. Maybe there isn't, but it's good to at least feel into the possibility that those two can coexist. And then we can pray for that. We can vision that, we can set the intention for that. But once we've laid the neural pathways in our brain, then maybe the universe can also support and lay the pathways for us to get there. And sometimes it's not possible, but at least good to see what it feels like to have both. So that's 2 minutes again, and then you'll have you'll switch, and then you'll have 2 minutes just at the end to debrief. So, is that all clear? Any questions? Should I try and demo this with Pauline, or is it clear?
So the first part is independent of the second. It's not a crossover or any. It's two separate exercises.
Yeah. But you'll do it with the same partner, so. So Pauline, are you available to demo with me?
I am here.
Okay.
So I'm thinking just the second part, because we already basically did the first part together as a group.
Right.
And it's interesting, there's not a ton of interaction between both partners. For example, in part 2, you'll be describing a dilemma if you're the person going first. And then the partner's role is mainly to witness. I'm not going to be asking questions of the person who's on the spot. Basically just witnessing.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to demonstrate going through this exercise with me giving you the prompts for it?
You're talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if folks think that would be helpful, if you think you're ready to jump and do it and it's clear, that's fine. Or we could quickly demo it. You can ask me or I can ask you, either way.
As long as we have the instructions, I'm happy to jump in. I don't know if anyone else feels the same, but it was fairly clear.
Yeah, Adela, how am I pronouncing your name correctly? You're muted.
Okay, my name is Adela with an A at the end. I have a different brain to most people. I have something, I hate giving labels, because it's called a multisensory aphantasia. So I have no sensing. I've never seen a picture in my brain in my life. And I work mainly with intuition. So to remember any of this exercise is quite difficult for me. I was able to do it with you because it's there in the present. You know, I'm basically work with my intuition and live by my intuition. So it's so. And the other thing I want to say is that as much I want to be honest about this, that it's fine you saying, well, fierce is, there's another meaning to the word fierce, and I get that, but fierce, as Declan said, maybe I'm slightly different, has very negative. I would never want to be fierce. I want to be powerful. I want to be strong. But fierce is not a word that I resonate with, and it's not something a quality I want to have. So what do I do about that?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you
To do
for
with the past. To do
yeah.
with the past. I know that.
Thank you.
I had
Thank
too
you.
many fierce, violent people in my life when I was a child, and I don't like that word.
Okay, good. Well, right now, I feel like in this very interaction, you have embodied both vulnerability and maybe I'm not going to say fierce, but I'm going to say powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
You
I
were
appreciate that. That touches me deeply. Thank you.
you were vulnerable in saying, "Hey, I've got this limitation," and you were willing to share that. So that was vulnerable and open. And then you were You're powerful. You were very clear and definitive. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to say fierce because you don't like it, but it was in that direction of powerful and strong and clear
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
precise.
Mhm.
So, so one thing we could do is, if you don't like the word fierce, work with powerful.
Fine. Lovely. Yeah.
So substitute
Thank you.
powerful for fierce. And yeah, and so do powerful and tender. Does that work for you?
Perfect. Perfect. It's just that I might, yeah. The other problem, as I say, I have is that when I'm guided through an exercise, I can do it, but to remember takes me about 10 times longer than anybody else to remember things. But I live with that very easily. I just, as I say, I don't know what Declan does, but I work as a therapist and I use intuition all the time. It's like inner guidance.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Just want to
I thought that
offer,
was a superpower, Adela. That when you mentioned that, I thought, wow, that's a superpower, not a limitation.
Yeah, so
Takes me
that's a
years to do
beautiful.
it. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm aware of
It's
that.
good. So but that's a beautiful demonstration of inner wholeness. That's something that you've kind of embraced in yourself. What is a limitation? So maybe earlier in your life you're like embarrassed, ashamed, or whatever to share. Oh, everybody else seems to be, or most people seem to be able to do it, but I can't do it so easily. And now you're like, oh, okay, well, that's just part of who I am. And you seem to be comfortable. So, so you, dare I say, have some level of integration and inner wholeness around it.
Yeah.
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 and practically, I just want to offer that Yosi will be guiding each step of the exercise. So there's no remembering the steps required.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I'll be a little more explicit. Sometimes people tell me to just name the times and not repeat the instructions, but I will be a little more explicit as we move through the steps.
Fine. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so should we jump in or do we gonna do the demo?
I think for the sake of staying on schedule, and because you'll be clearly explaining each step of the way, why don't we jump in? Is everyone all right with
Yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll see everyone who's watching after the breakouts. Welcome back from the breakouts, everyone.
Yes, welcome. What was that like? What did you learn? What did you discover?
I could share a little bit.
Please.
I really appreciated having a chance to step out of my intellectual mind a bit. I spend so much time trying to create logical analyses and figure everything out in my head. And this exercise helped me come to a place where when I step back to hold both polarities or both sides, I initially would feel confused. And I take that as such a good sign where it's like, okay, well, I'm expanding to hold more, to hold the synergy between the two. And it feels new and different at first. But when I stop trying to figure it out with my mind, it's like my being, my body, and different aspects of my spiritual intelligence are coming online where then it feels like a creative possibility is emerging that I never would have like got to through just mental means.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Can you share the values without the specifics of the dilemma? Or is that too private? You don't need to.
No, happy to share the values. The first one was productivity, and the second one was devotion.
Okay. So you found a way to harmonize being productive and being devoted to something perhaps even different than productivity, or might seem the devoted to your spiritual practice versus being productive in your job and earning income or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the images, having the visual helped me just to combine those two in a more somatic way.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that starts to lay the grooves for the possibility of having a life that's productive and has some devotion.
Right, that's how it felt when I was able to hold the integration of both. It's like this sense of new possibility that this could be actualized, even if I don't know how it's going to look externally, but that inner possibility felt real.
Yeah, so that could start to invite the unconscious or the intuition to say, okay, oh, I could have a life where I'm feeling productive and devoted to the divine or my spiritual unfoldment. What is that going to look like?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you. Patrick, were you able to follow the exercise?
A bit, just a bit.
Just a bit. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being a brave soul, jumping in and going with the flow and giving it a trial.
Welcome. Like to attend another time and experience more.
Okay. Yeah. You can go back and listen to the recording and maybe make more sense of what you did experience.
I will.
Thank you. Anybody else care to share? I'm curious.
Adela, did you want to share? If not, I'm happy to share.
We can't hear you still.
My unmute button didn't come up. No, you go ahead, Declan. Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute myself. You go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, there was I guess some differing values that were coming up in the two, and of course it was rather hurried. So it was like I was like just getting into I had this value around security and safety, a perception of it, because I've been invited to be a partner in this particular business, and that's a great honor. But at the same time, he's not an easy guy to go into partnership with, and we've had our run-ins. So fierceness comes to mind, and so I've got that one side that I think is going to bring more certainty and safety and security. And I had this vision of wearing a three-piece suit. And over on this side is my own business that I'm currently in. That's like I was on the beach. I was walking on shells. It was uncomfortable, but more energy. It was the waves were there. But the value is much more about creativity and freedom. Now, I'm not saying that the other won't be creative as well, but both have possibility, but neither really do have certainty or security. And so it was this dilemma that I'm sitting with. And,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
so,
So creativity and security, yeah.
yeah. And
So,
learning and,
uh,
having to kick up and keep, when
mm,
I think of the word fiercely in that context, I think of it more like fiercely learning, fiercely pursuing whatever goals, and knowing spiritually deep down, I think I'm doing it. I have to work hard and do it. And, the one on the right was much more about what my life journey has been aiming towards. And the one on the left is like, okay, come on in here and you can park for a while. And, maybe have a little bit more of a comfort and safety because you'll be a partner in this business instead. So it's like
Yeah.
one's restriction, one is openness.
Okay. Okay. So, but let's see if we can just forget about the specifics of the dilemma. And because when you think about, okay, my own business is creativity, etc., but then it's bringing in a lot of other values. And then
Yeah.
you think about partnering with him, safety, security, but then, okay, but he's hard to deal with and blah, 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 and conflict. But let's throw those. So once you get to the my own business is creativity. So let's just focus on the quality of creativity. Let's see if you just think about creativity, what's
Mm.
the image and quality of your body when you're in creativity? You embody creativity. Forget about that this is associated now with,
With work or anything, yeah.
yeah, just what's it like to be in a state of being of creativity and embody creativity?
Yeah, I can feel it in my heart, and it is energizing. It is fresh.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's and I've got this deep set security blanket that I really would love to have in that, but the creativeness is
Wait,
so.
wait, forget about the security. We'll go there. We're just going to stay with creativity.
I'm over here in creativity. Okay. It's challenging. It's I feel it's like being dancing on my toes and light. It's been responsive, it's been open, and it's been
And what's the image
courageous.
associated with creativity?
It's yeah, it's like dancing. It's like it's an unknown. It's a feeling of um possibility and freedom.
Okay.
That's
Perhaps it's like an open canvas and you're just, you know,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. And then if you go to the other thing, just security, what's that like? Just security and safety and
As I was sharing with Adela, it feels like I can relax a bit. I can
uh-huh.
sort of I'm more held in a structure that feels like, okay, I'm doing my job, check, and I'm able to take care of things, check. So I don't have to be so concerned or worried about the future. But it,
Mhm.
it is heavier. It feels more like burden, and so
Mhm.
that's how it feels in the sense of security,
Uh-huh. Security. Uh-huh. Okay. So what's the image of security that goes with security?
restriction.
Hmm.
It's like a job for life type thing, and this is
Okay, but
very,
you're going back to the job. See if you can just stay with security.
yeah, I
What's that?
associate that security.
What's a place you feel secure in? Maybe it's lying in your bed and your
Mm.
bedroom at home. Does that feel secure?
Right. Now you're challenging me to think of like security for me has been financial, and I'm now having to think of what is actually does that mean about a feeling safe. Yeah.
When and where do you feel safe, or have you felt safe?
The most I feel safe is actually when I'm engaged in doing what I love to do, and
Uh-huh.
that is generally speaking when I'm running a workshop or presenting or doing something like that. I feel secure in that way. I feel secure myself when I'm actually out doing something as an expression of this.
I see. Okay, and are you creative then too?
Yes.
Okay, so what's it like? So it sounds like you can have security and creativity together.
Yes, it's a lot of fun, and it's yeah, it's a little bit more like being a performer and or maybe a comedian. And so
Uh-huh.
it's
Okay.
so yeah, that does feel yeah, and I see where it's going with the my 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 block around security is my filter about just
Yeah.
doing it as one thing. Like both both options are really the same from the context of safety and security. Like they're both unknown how it'll work out. But I think the difference, I can be creative and need to be creative in both. It's simply that I have this perception it'll be difficult with having to dance with someone else versus doing my own thing. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you. You give me a lot to think about.
Thank you. Adela, anything you want to share?
Just basically, without going into it, most of it, I ended up with realizing how one could support the other. You know, there was space for both. They could be mutually, if you want, supportive. They weren't separate.
Mm-hmm.
They were separate. Well, they were separate, but one could actually be there with the other while I'd been splitting them as one or the other, and it's one and the other.
Okay, so what do you experience
And all.
what do you experience when you feel like, oh, I can have one and the other and they can support each other?
It's it's a sense of wholeness, a sense of relief as well, I think. Yeah, a sense of completeness.
Okay. Yeah. Relief, completeness, wholeness. What do you know? By coincidence, our theme for today was inner wholeness. So
Yes, more possibility as well. Yes.
more possibilities. Okay, great. More possibilities, which brings us to the theme for our next gathering. It's amazing how these things kind of line up. More possibilities. So more possibilities means what?
You're asking me, or you're telling me?
Freedom.
Freedom. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we have more possibilities, there's greater freedom. So just somehow you channeled our next gathering. You're already there, you know? And so you're giving us a transmission. So, all right.
Freedom.
Our next gathering will be the third Friday in July, the 18th, same time, same place. You can sign up already, or actually in a couple hours at awakeningsi.org. But yeah, we really hope to see everyone again, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope to come to others, but I can't always guarantee it. Like I know in August, I'm going to be away. That won't be possible, but I might be able to come on the 18th. So I'm going to put it down. Thank you.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad it's the 18th.
always.
I'm booked the following Friday, so I was hoping it wasn't going to be that Friday. So that's great.
Yeah, well, and always, even if you can't attend, it's good to register. You'll get a link of the recording as soon as
Oh, that's good.
as soon as it, and we set it up so that hopefully the instructions are there and you could do the exercise on your own. So you could pause the recording like we had here, the slides that describe the exercise, and you could do it with a friend, a partner, on your own.
Do you send an email link? How do I register? Where do I?
So there will be an email going out to everyone who's here today with a link
Right.
to today's
Thank you.
recording and how to register for the next one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Many blessings. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah.
All
We'll
right.
see you hopefully soon. Take good care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Yosi.
Bye.